The MVP, the minimum viable product. What is MVP? So an MVP is really the fastest, cheapest thing you can build. The fastest, cheapest thing you can put forward. And the goal is to get into the hands of the customers fast. And again, the goal of an MVP is so that you can observe and measure the results. And with the goal of making your product something customers want, need, and love to pay. That's a lot of words to take in. I hope that we are together. Number one, it has to be fast. It has to be a process that is fast. It is the cheapest thing that you can do, that you can build. And the goal is to get into the hands of the customers fast. Like I've said, lots of people spend many years planning businesses without ever even reaching the customer. That is not the way to build a product or to go into business. You want to get into the customer's hands fast, the fastest way you can, the fastest product that you can get to the customers. That's the goal. And the goal is really to observe, again, observe and measure the results and make something that customers want, need, and love to buy. Those are different things. If you have been doing business like I have been, there are many times when you come up with a product and you show it to customers and they're like, this is good, good, well done, well done. But converting to a point, when you say, now what about payment? Then you see all their faces changing and you never get them to pay. It's a different whole thing. It's okay. People can tell, people can flatter you and say that's good. I would want that, but do they need it? And would they really love to pay for it? And that's what the MVP is about. So what's the cheapest, the fastest thing that you can build to get into the hands of the customers fast? Like I've told you, do not waste time. There is a video I did on my page, somewhere Mudisha DC on Facebook, and I talked about getting ready to get ready. A lot of people spend a lot of time getting ready to get ready, spend years planning businesses, and they never even happen because you're spending a lot of time, you're taking so long to get into the hands of the customer. So get into the hands of the customer as soon as you can. And the idea is simple, as we are going to look at a number of customers. But just to recap on this, the idea is, for instance, if you wanted to start a restaurant, the idea is do not begin buying air conditioning, do not begin buying all those things. What you need, what would be your MVP? Let me ask, by the way, if you're starting a restaurant, what do you think would be an MVP? Maybe as we talk, by the end of the talk, we shall know what an MVP for a restaurant would be. What would be your MVP? Somebody wants to type in the chat. You can type in the chat. If you're starting a restaurant, what would be your MVP? What would you focus on? What would be the cheapest, fastest thing you can do to get into the hands of the customers fast, so that you can observe and measure results and make a restaurant that people want to be in, need, and will pay for your services? That's the goal. What would be the fastest? What would you do? Somebody will be, you can be answering that question as we move along. So that's MVP. Now, you may think this is a strange idea and you think it's a new idea, but successful companies all over the world have used this very concept. All the successive companies, I think if not all of them, from Microsoft that you know, if you read about the story they have used the concept of the MVP. They never have the product done, but they get into the hands of the customer very fast. That's what they do. The first example we'll look at is Zappos. Zappos is a big store. In the UK, it's very big. They are big on shoes. This guy wanted to start an online store for shoes, and he didn't even have inventory for the shoes. You know, to start a shop, you can decide, let me first make a supply chain to China, then let me begin shipping from China, etc. But he didn't do that. The founder, Nick, went into shoe retailing without any stock. He just took photos of shoes he wanted to sell in stores, And if customers ordered for them, he then physically purchased the product and sold them on. That's a great way to test a market if you don't have access to the product, but have an MVP model you think will succeed. So it looks like in this current world, you don't even need to have physical items. You can just find a way of putting up a web page like this one here, and then you'll go to all the stores in your city in Kampala, take photos of nice shoes and put them on, and then go and show people using that web page and say, you know what, I sell shoes. And when they place an order, you go and get the shoe and deliver to them. And that's what he did. That's what people like Jumia are doing. I don't think they have any stock. They have none, but they are making money. So it's really possible now to run businesses without even stock. It's possible to run them. So instead of spending years planning how to raise capital for shoes and doing ABCD, this is what he did. And you know what he does then next? He does analytics on his website and sees which shoes people like. He learns what customers want most. And after building some capital, he begins even either convincing people who have those shoes for bigger discounts, bigger margins. So if he sees that you have particular shoes that people like, he will come to you and say, I will be your marketer, but I want a bigger discount so that he makes more money, or he will even get them himself. So he has now gained insight on many things. One, he knows what shoes people like, which would, instead of buying products and learning that actually people don't like these shoes, he knows from purchasing, from selling for others. He knows which shoes people like. He knows what are the trends. He knows the seasons. He learns everything about the business with minimum investment. And when he has learned, now he knows what to do, and then prepares it. There are some answers here about the MVP for a restaurant. It could be the recipe. I want to say share pictures of food you prepare at home and have reviews of people who try out your food. Finding out neither preferences of recipes. We'll see about that. Maybe you may refine your answer as we talk. But that's one example of Zappos, and Zappos is now a huge store, but that's how it started, really, from an MVP. Sell when you don't even have, do experiments, the cheapest experiments. Don't wake up, save money, sell your land, go to Dubai, bring shoes and bring them here, and don't realize that people actually don't want them. Do those things happen? Do you know anyone who has done such kind of business? You can type yes shoes or no shoes if you know someone who has run a business like that. They go ship products, put in a lot of money, sell their products, and then bring them in, and then the things don't work out. Someone says no shoes. He doesn't know anybody who has been in that dilemma, and that is it. Another great example of an MVP is what we saw with Dropbox. Dropbox also decided and to go further and didn't make any product at all. They didn't make any product at all. At least the other guys of Zappos at least had a web page, but they didn't have a product at all. Instead, they pretended they had it by creating an explainer video. They wanted to check if their file syncing idea is anywhere close to being interesting to people. They couldn't have built a whole hardware infrastructure, develop apps, and so on, but that was a risk they were willing to take. If the idea would have failed, Dropbox founders would lose priceless time, a lot of effort and money if they had gone into infrastructure, apps and stuff. Overnight, they attracted over 70K of people who left their emails and wanted to get the product as soon as possible. So they just used this video. I'm going to play the video and you see how they developed the MVP. They had nothing, but instead of going to invest all this infrastructure, they just put together a video, and they got 70,000 people who showed they were interested in their product and were willing to pay. And then the story changes. If you have that proof, you can even get an investor overnight, and Dropbox is what we know of today. Let me play the video if you can hear the sounds. Can you hear the sound? If you can hear the sound, you can say yes. Can you hear the sound? If you can say yes for me.
Keeping track of all of your files can be a pain. Solving this problem. Ideas behind Dropbox. It's like a magic pocket, a single, secure place for all of your stuff. You're about to buy lunch and realize your wallet is in your other pants. Or maybe you left your keys at home. The problem is organization. You need one place for everything, like a magic pocket. Putting something in the magic pocket means it's always there, no matter what you wear or where you are. The same thing is true for computers. If you have more than one, keeping track of all of your files can be a pain. Solving this problem is one of the big ideas behind Dropbox. It's like a magic pocket, a single, secure place for all of your stuff. Let's meet Josh, who is preparing for a big trip to Africa. Right now, all of his trip info is spread across his laptop, desktop, and phone. He needs to consolidate it all and is tired of having to email files to himself or move them around with a USB drive. Then he found Dropbox, which creates a new kind of folder on his computers. These folders work hard to be exactly alike, even across Macs and PCs. By adding his itinerary to his laptop Dropbox, he can be sure the same file will show up in his desktop Dropbox and even on his phone. The same thing happens when he saves a document in a Dropbox folder. The document gets updated across all of his Dropboxes. But it's not just his computers. The Dropbox website also works to be exactly like his other Dropboxes. Anything he puts in Dropbox is available on the website automatically. This way, if his Jeep takes a dive and his computer is ruined, he can still get to his files on the Dropbox website, where they're always backed up. As it turns out, Josh's Safari was a success, and his laptop made it home with lots of videos and photos to share. Instead of emailing everything, he just shared a Dropbox folder with his mom, so she could get copies of photos she wants to frame. Because it worked so well for travel, Josh made Dropbox the home for all of his stuff, so it's accessible anytime, wherever he goes. Whether you're traveling the world, running a business, or simply organizing your life, Dropbox means you can stop worrying about managing files and backups and get on with your next adventure. You can download Dropbox now at Dropbox.com.
Great. I hope they're MVP. There is an idea, maybe I'll get to that later. Yeah, so that was the MVP for Dropbox. They just came up with a video and then put up a sign-up page if you want Dropbox. And people signed up. Then they got validated learning that actually this is good. This is good. And Dropbox became a success. So you can just do a video like they did, and it's not only Dropbox. We know Uber also began from an MVP. Most of us, of course, know Uber. You may be surprised, but if you didn't follow Uber's history since the very beginning, you might not know that back in 2010, Uber wasn't what you'd expect it to be. Uber's MVP did one simple thing: connected drivers with iPhone owners in San Francisco who aren't scared to have a credit payment enabled in an unknown app. So they just made sure that they were connecting iPhone owners to drivers. That was it. It was enough to fulfill their main goal: offer taxi services as cheap as possible. The Uber we know is a result of a right approach to business scaling and a successful MVP test. So there are lots of features that Uber could have developed, but the main feature really is connecting drivers to clients. And the main thing was also to take payments. So they were basically testing two things: can drivers connect to phone owners, and can people also be willing to take payments? Because without payments, then Uber doesn't work well. And they did that for a long time, and it worked very well. People loaded the app and they started building from there and learned a lot of things. Some of those things that you see the cab coming to you were all learned along the way. These are ideas that people give you when the business has started, but it all started just like that. Amazon, the owner is now the richest man on the planet. Just started the way you see this web page right here. And they were selling books only. You can imagine a web page like this, books, and they were collecting books at low prices with a simplistic web design. Was all it took for the company to grow and branch out to become the retail Leviathan it is today. That's all they did. Started selling books, a few items. When he was asked, he says, yes, he had a big dream of a one-stop center, but he had to just begin with just books, and that's what he did. He had the big dream, but he had to begin from somewhere. Airbnb, Air Bed and Breakfast, fantastic idea also. Cutting out the middleman and providing short-term renting is the key mission behind Airbnb. Short-term renting, holiday, whatever. Brian, Cheske, and Joe Gabia lived in a loft apartment in San Francisco and had difficulties with paying their rent. That's when they decided to give it a try and fulfill one of their dreams to start a business. To test the idea, they provided accommodation for those who came to town to attend a design conference. Brian and Joe took a simple pictures of their loft, created a simple web page, and soon enough had 3 paying guests. Airbnb expanded organically with founder Paul Cheste living exclusively in Airbnbs to dog food the product. Again, prove the concept. They just took photos of the apartment. You're thinking about a business like this, apartments, rather than even thinking about building them or even going to convince somebody to give you an apartment. They just took photos of their own apartment and targeted an event that was happening and said, hey, people are coming to this event, but you know, there are hotels which are at this price, but we are offering this price. Because Airbnb, that's where Airbnb comes in. There are a number of hotels in an area. They are very expensive and sometimes they get sold out. So it says, you know what, we have a room here where you can come. And they got 3 paying guests, and that is enough. You have money in your pocket, you have gone to the customer, and they continue doing this organically, enrolling, targeting events in a place, and then putting up adverts, and people coming on, and it grew. And now Airbnb is on its way to disrupt hotels. Most people have predicted that in the next 10 years, hotels will be extinct because hotels are expensive, Airbnbs are cheaper, and give you more than what a hotel could give you. But that's how everything really started, a simple MVP. So that's,
excuse me, Sam.
Yeah, there is a, yes.
There is a good question here from Waigolo Timothy. It's quite a long one. He says, in 2017, my dad purchased some land in some town. I was joining campus that year and he wanted to establish an investment that can take care of me. So when we were ideating about what he should do, I came up with a plan of him setting up a vocation institution that scales up young people. After the brilliant idea, my dad started up the construction and the institution was ready. The fact that the project was based in town made us think that customers will be available. My dad staffed workers of all kinds, and indeed, the first time of the operation, things showed that they could be successful. Students stand out and services were given to them. However, the staff we entrusted for finance used the money in a way no one knows and made everything turn around. Services became limited and students lost their trust. My dad was not willing to reinvest in the business again. He left the buildings hanging in town, but adding no value to our lives. So the question is, what could have caused the abrupt shutdown of this investment that took lots of money?
Hello, are you there? Is Atwina there? He has dropped off. I'm not sure. Atwina, are you there? Can you guys hear me? Somebody type yes if you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear me. Atwina, I hope you get on again. Yeah, Timothy, that's a very sad story, but that is what really happens when we do business and we haven't really done a lot of research about it. There are many reasons, but from your case, it looks like it was because you say that the first time students turned out, so customers came and services were given to them. So that means that you have a business. When customers come and they pay, you have a business. But the problem is that the staff, no one knows what they so there is much more to management. And I think here the problem seems to be management. It doesn't seem to be a product market fit problem. Market fit, which is usually a big problem, the biggest problem, but this one looks like a management problem. Again, even for management, for everything, we can carry out experiments to prove which management style works. All that we do experiments. We can test stuff, do different things. All of it is experimentation, and keep experimenting and see which management style works, which rooms go what, how students want things. It's all a learning process. It's all a learning process. It's all about minimizing wastage and learning as much as we can. So sorry about that, but I think you should take up the investment now and now do it with informed insights. Talk to the students, know what they want, and also bootstrap your management and try different management styles with different people and see the results. And soon enough, you'll have a working formula that runs business very, very well. So we test everything. We test the market, we test the location, we test the customers, we test. But the first most important experiment, which I think your dad got right, is that he got paying customers. He got paying customers. If I were him, I was not going to build the whole flat at once. At least I would build one room. And if I get a paying customers, one room or one floor, depending on the easiest the architect tells me. And if people pay for that one room, then I know I have a business and then I can continue. Because sometimes for him, he was lucky he had product market fit, a good location. Sometimes people try and the location turns out to be bad. You think you have a great location and customers show that you don't have a great location. So those are some examples, and I just wanted to stress something here. There's a screen here that is used quite often, what an MVP is like and what it's not. So an MVP, this one is trying to build a tuk-tuk-like vehicle. And you don't begin with one tire and you say, we now have an MVP. A tire is not an MVP. Two tires are also not MVP. And of course, this is also not an MVP. The way to do it is, because the goal is something that moves transportation, the first goal is the MVP would be something like this, something functionally working, doing at least a major function. This one, some people can use it to move, and it can move, and then add a steering wheel, and then a bicycle, and then add an engine. And from an engine, you have learned a lot about engines, you can get to a car. So that's usually a common mistake. Minimum viable product does not mean a half-baked product or something that is really, it means just the minimum. It is the real product, but with the simplest version to basically achieve what we talked about, achieve a paying customer, achieve, so if you're making a product, you won't just do like housing of the product and say, this is our MVP. No, you may need something that either demonstrates the whole product or something that does a function of it. I hope this one is clear. And if you have questions on this, we can talk about them as we continue with the call. So that's really much about MVP. The rules of thumb are simple. Number one, if you are extremely reluctant and even embarrassed to show your product, you are doing it right. An MVP shouldn't be perfect, but if you're even reluctant and even embarrassed, then you're doing it right. That's what they say. If you feel comfortable or proud of it, you should have shown it sooner. By the time you're comfortable and proud of it, it means you've lost valuable time to get to the customers. So you should have gone very, very fast. If you feel stuck, then go faster. If you feel things are not moving, then you have to try and even go faster. Those are rules of thumb. This is new way of doing things. I can tell you that I have worked with very many people, and the way you see them, they could even spend 10 years without ever getting to the customer, because in their mind, it must be perfect. It must be having all the features. Features never end. Customers always come up with new things. So the problem is when you spend a lot of time to get it perfect, by the time you get it perfect, even what they want has already changed. That's what happens to most people. You're focusing on getting it perfect, but there's no perfect. Customers keep changing, keep wanting more, keep changing things. So it's a new way of doing things, and there are lots of critics to this approach, but what we know is that most successful companies have definitely used this approach. It may not work in some instances. That has to be also mentioned, especially in the medical space. We have so some medical things have to go through a certain strict process that has been put there. For instance, now we talk about the COVID vaccines and all. It may be very hard to develop an MVP for a COVID vaccine because by the time people use it, it must have gone through the whole cycle. So there are exceptions to this that people can bring up here and there, especially due to laws and things related with health and life. But most businesses really can get started using this process. And even if you're developing a vaccine, again, it has to be done in a way that minimizes wastage and maximizes learning. You don't go and cut a whole village of bushes and you say, for us, we are making the vaccine, or go and purchase whole materials and etc. You have to begin from a point that is cheapest and the cheapest way to get to the customer so that you get learning. And that's much about the MVP. So the main question today, really, I don't know what you're building. I haven't known what you're building. Maybe we can discuss in the next sections what you're building. The big question is, what could you build today that you could put in the hands of customers tomorrow? That's the biggest question. What could you do today that you can put in the hands of the customers tomorrow? And that's your MVP here. And finally, it will become a product. And like trying to bring the knowledge we have acquired in the other two sections together, we will build it, we'll measure how it works and keep learning. Build, measure, learn. That is the secret to success with business today. Build, measure, and learn. It's a very important thing. We have talked about learning with test cards and learning cards, carrying out different experiments, whether it's about the location, whether it's about the packaging, whether it's about all those things. Really, you have to carry out experiments. Don't run and import lots of materials to do packaging. First, you might come and people don't like the packaging, and that can be a big problem to your product. So even a name, you could think of a name and you put it out there and people don't like it. So everything is testing. If you want to test a name, tell the name to 10 people. 5 days later, call them and ask them, you know about the other product I was talking about? If none of them remembers the name, then maybe the name won't be catchy. So everything is really about testing and learning. Whatever you think, you may think this name is catchy and people like it and they shock you. So whatever you think you know is a hypothesis and must be tested. Build, measure, and learn. Now, next week, we'll mainly be talking about measuring, which is innovation accounting, and that will really finish this series that I've been doing, introduction to lean businesses and lean startups. I hope that after next week, we can talk more. But if you have covered these 4 lectures, you know how to build MVPs, and you can read more about how other companies are building MVPs in your stage. And tomorrow, you can try something and get it to your customer as soon as possible. Don't wait years and years of planning, thinking before you get to the customer. find the minimum that you can get to the customer, get to them and get some money from them and build from there. Keep measuring and learning, and this cycle just continues along the business, and that is a sure way to minimize wastage and to successful business. Yeah, that's what I can. That's it really for MVP. I want to take on questions now. Questions, ideas, disagreements, everything that you can talk about. Let's get to that. You can raise your hand, and my colleague Atwina. Atwina, are you back? Or you disappeared completely? He's back.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You will help me to get the questions and then we answer them. But that's really the whole idea of MVP. Is it confusing? Is it new? Is it useful? Can it save you money? I want to hear from you in the next few minutes. And then I'll ask you to go and begin working on your MVPs as soon as you can. Work on your MVPs and get to the customer and acquire the learning that you need and get from there. Timothy has his hand up. Timothy, please, you can go ahead.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel. And thank you very much for everyone who has attended the session.
Yes, please.
I shared a bit of what I went through because it was scary. At first it was operating, but then it turned out to be a failure. So when I was trying to talk to my dad to tell him about re-establishing the institution, he was telling me, no, Timothy, I can't. I'm going into other businesses, but I'm leaving the businesses hanging. I'm leaving the building hanging there. So if you need them, you can go and start, but I'm not going to give you a penny. It's now going to be on your what? On your own. Yes. But all the lessons, the sessions I've been going through, I've been building up and building up and building up. I think I have learned a lot that I can even talk to him and he can give me a hand of help.
Yes.
I can stand for myself. Because the main thing he was doing was, what if I leave campus and there is no that job? I can still survive with him or me myself on my own. That was it. I'm very happy. Thank you very. I'm not complaining. I don't have an idea, but I'm just trying to show my gratitude and my appreciation towards these sessions. Thank you.
Thanks, Timothy. Yeah, you have a good beginning point. You can drop a new business plan for him and cover some new ways of building the idea. You can even go talk to some customers and show him some research that you have done and some learning you have done. You can really do so much now to really convince him to put in the minimum, again, the minimum that he needs to get this running. And once the minimum is put in, then the business will start again. Thanks. So Isaac is also having his hand up. Isaac, please, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Sam. My question is, like you said, what is your ability to deliver the product within a given time? Let's say I want to borrow the idea of Dropbox. I do the video or I do any material, give it out to the customer to measure the results. But sometimes, like me right now, I have an idea, but I don't have enough funds to take it on. So if people like the idea and I can't take it on so fast, so what's the relevance of? Okay, that's my bit of question. I hope you understand it.
Yep. Yeah. It's also we know that when Microsoft was starting, Bill Gates told his mom who was a janitor at IBM, that he had software that could work for them. And of course, they hesitated and they called him, and he went and told them, you know what, I can deliver software for your hardware. He had the minimum, he had just something small, which was like a calculator of sorts running on a DOS. And they told him, okay, young boy, when can you deliver a working thing? And he said, well, I have an invoice here. If you want it, you can pay me something like this, and then on this date I'll deliver, which of course they refused to give him the money, but they told him on this date, come and show us. If you show us, we shall give you the money. So from the point when the customer likes your product to the point when you must deliver, if they are going to give you money, that's a point where you don't sleep. That is what they call the valley of death somehow. You have to do everything to deliver as much as you can. Or you have gotten some learning and the customer says, come and deliver. Again, you're not going to deliver the whole product, but you may deliver something that's working, but that's a big test. Now it may call for fundraising. Remember, you're not going to talk to one customer. We said talk to 100. If you are sure today, what I would ask maybe, Emmanuel, if you are sure today that 100 people are sure of your product, even you can move to a bank and they'll give you a loan. Even you can get some people, you can even convince your friends or even your family, who are the first people we get capital from, your friends, your family, they call them the 3Fs, friends, family, and fools. You can convince them and they will give you money, because if you have, again, that's why it is good to document for each customer, and you have your results and they are real and people can see it. Trust me, you will raise money. And there is a whole course on fundraising. I'll see if we can talk about it and I take you through how to fundraise. But whenever you have that, things just begin moving. You will not sleep. You will show people will begin to think about investing in it, and you assemble a team, which is already the journey of an entrepreneur, assembling teams, fundraising, getting people together and making them believe that it can work. So it's a tight thing to do, but if you have 100 people and you're sure the things are working, I can tell you have a business. And it may go slow or whatever, you may not produce the first customers, but trust me, you're on the right track, and with hard work and patience, you'll get there. Let me take Kolvak. Kolvak, you have your hand up. You can unmute your mic, and then you can also say something.
Are you getting me now?
Yeah, we can get you.
Thank you so much. This is Colin. Sorry about that name.
Hey, Collins. Yeah.
So, my question is, for the with this kind of framework, MVP, can we say that it is more appreciated when it comes to a particular, or it operates in a particular geographical region? Because in, for instance, taking on Africa, what are those companies that we can look up to that have actually used this kind of framework and are really successful? Because if you're to see, like in the Western world, it's like it has taken course, but in particularly a place like Uganda, a place like Africa, East Africa, what are those companies that are really doing it?
Yeah, I'll tell you for a fact, I met the founder of Safe Border, both the Ugandan and the Spanish founder, and they use this very, very approach. Safe Border started in 2010, and the guy who built Safe Border has even more than 500 interviews that he did with border men. This is the guy who had come to Uganda and was having a holiday, and he saw the challenges with borders. And so he says he himself and another friend whom he met at Watoto Church decided to interview at least 500 borders to learn about them, learn if they could use an app, and as well talk to different people. They did this for a year and learned about the whole business of Safe Border. And they had the first version. The version we're using today is not the first Safe Border version. They had a first version which was released to about 200 border people. And when that worked out, they got funding, they raised a lot of money in the US. And it's the Safe Border that we see through today. through a number of iterations to when they launched the last version, that was the version that we are using now. That was 2017. Yeah, 2017. So it took a lot of time because it's a mega product, but it is the same very cycle they used, talking to borders, trying to build. He built paper MVPs. He built scenarios, just building scenario like videos. And though this is well documented, if you follow some of the talks that they have had, you will know their journey to where they are today. You will know that they use this very same process. A number of companies, of course, have used this. Really, it's not only here, but a number of people have used this approach. Let me first take Melcamo. I don't know if the rest have their hands up, or Melcamo.
Okay, can you hear me, Sam?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for these great lessons. And my question is from you said MVP should be made fastest and the cheapest.
Yes.
And I'm thinking how this is possible, since it is first of its kind, and it has also to be real, not part of the product. Actually, as you have shown us in the examples, some are like Dropbox are they have imitated that they have product without making the product. In case of the Zappos, they have made some like, as you said, some web, and they borrowed the other thing, like they buy the shoe from the shop. But how can this be possible, as you said, to make the product real and make it cheapest and the fastest?
Yeah, maybe Malcolm, just to ask a simple question. What kind of product are you thinking about, so that we can brainstorm about a possible MVP?
Yeah, actually, as of now, I'm not fixed my idea, but I have a lot of ideas. But there are some, if you consider in the case of the health startups and health products, they have to pass through many regulations, and the regulation is very rigorous, and it takes many time, and it cannot be cheapest and the fastest, as you know.
Yep. The whole idea again is whatever product you're doing, there must be a cheaper way to get to the customer, and there is always the most expensive way to actually get to the customer. So I wish I had an example of what you're talking about. We've given some examples. I wish I had some examples, but those are some examples that I've given you, and there are many other examples, even in the medical space, even in the mechanic space. There are many people who have shown us how MVPs can be done, and you just basically have to Google, like in your industry, and see how the companies have evolved and what they used. A number of them which have begun with a very expensive approach have actually not survived, but the ones that have used this approach have, as we can see, there are lots of success stories that you can even find on the internet. So it takes a keen eye. Some people have used even paper prototypes. You know, what you want is to get validated learning, and then use this to convince funders, use this to inform your process, you basically use it for whatever you want to get you to the next stage. But rather than spending a lot of time thinking and doing whatever, you do this, and then you get the product in the hands of the customer. So when you come with more examples, we'll talk more, and we'll brainstorm and see what companies in your space, for instance, are doing, and then we will definitely find the fastest, cheapest thing to do to get to the customers, observe and measure results, and build something that customers need, love, and want to pay for.
Okay, one more thing, and also it is not the same as a prototype, right?
Prototype is what some people call MVP. But the difference between really a prototype and an MVP, prototypes are usually, I don't know, you know, I think people call it prototype. I don't know how I can explain it, but the real language really is MVP.
Okay.
Prototypes are more, I would say, more like the difference between an app and a product. An app works just an app on your PC, on your phone, but a product has this 360-degree view, the customers, the partners. You begin thinking about products and really getting to the customers. It's not just product, but it's a combination of all the systems that make it really a product. Because a product is not just one thing; it's the whole thing around it that make it really a product. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. I have some comments here. We have Peter Dusabe saying, I like the idea of building MVPs. Reminds me of a line from the movie Fields of Dreams. The line goes, you build it, they will come. In other words, unless you build it, they won't come. This is great. Henry Kawas says, I know of some big companies that started with crazy MVPs like, I think this is Gojek. It wanted to start a food delivery service. Their MVP was just a text box with a caption, what do you want to eat? But do you think MVPs in this era should start that small? That's his question.
Yes, the MVPs in this era can also start small, really. There is a lot of competition in this era, and it's not about this era, but it depends on the space where you're working from. It depends on the space. You know, there's a popular saying that when the big shots are doing it, then you're too late to get into it. A case in point is now what we are seeing with e-commerce. There are many people now who are running into e-commerce, and when you run in now, actually some analysts will say you're too late. You should have come earlier, because now all the big guys, I saw something called Mazebo, I saw what, everyone is already thinking about it. So sometimes it's good when the ideas are novel and the space is very open. But even in a market like this one, you can still start small and learn and improve. Remember that the businesses we are building are not Me Too products. Whatever you're building, as we said, a business cannot survive on Me Too products alone. Me Too means they do this, let me also do this. They serve buffet, let me also serve buffet. No, a business will not survive with that. You need some differentiation to make it a bit different, so that you attract your market and build your niche market. That's how a business will survive. So regardless of the space, regardless of the times, if you have your niche, you have your difference, and you begin pushing it out, and through this process, you will get there, rather than the other process of beginning from the big and investing lots of money and taking so long to reach the customers. There's a lot of trouble in that kind of approach. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. We have Isaac Tumusime saying, at what stage can I develop an MVP in a tech innovation? Can an MVP be equivalent of a prototype in a tech business?
Yep. The stage, it is exactly the stage that we're talking about. One, you have an idea, you have done a business plan for it. You now get out of the building, begin talking to customers, acquiring some bit of feedback, and that's when you build an MVP, because these customers, you have to show them something. So from business plan straight, we go to MVP and go to customers right away, as soon as possible. You know, Bill Gates wrote a book called Business at the Speed of Thought. If you have a business, don't spend years thinking about the business. Run out, try it whatever way you can. Business, that's what he says, his secret. They do business at the speed of thought. If they think about it, they get an MVP for it, they get to the customer right away, And if the customer is interested in it, then they invest more, and etc. That's the way he says, be at the speed of thought. You think that cloud computing is fine, go pitch it to a few people, get some orders if possible, and then invest a lot of money in it, get to the customer. So that's the cycle that most companies really are using. They don't want to spend years and years. That's why you see all the companies have, big companies, Google, what they have releases every year. They have new products every year. That means that they are learning so much and they are prototyping so much. So prototype really, for me, I think a prototype is more of technical and all, but MVP is more of all the components of a business. Remember, an app is not the same as a product. An app is just an app. The apps that you do in school on your computer, apps on the computer. But now a product is something different. It has the customers, it has a market, it has lots of things. The 9 things that we talked about that really make a business is all that makes a product. Yep, I see there are many other questions. It's an intriguing idea, and I like that everyone is intrigued about it. But you will get more resources online. You will learn how most companies really go to the customers. And an MVP is not like a final product. That's one thing I have to make clear. An MVP is a process. It is this very process of building, measuring, learning. It's not, you keep learning and learning and learning and learning, yeah? At every level, doing the minimum that you can do. It's not like it's the end or whatever. It's just the process of keeping doing this, and this is a sure way to get to success. So using our test card and our learning card, it is good that we keep on documenting, because we tend to forget. When you have talked to many people, write your conclusions and say, we have learned this and we have learned it for sure. Then we have learned this and we have learned it for sure. And like that, you'll have a lot of insight into the customer than any other business, because very few people actually use these processes. Most people just go and hope that the business will work. So that's how it looks like. Yeah. It's an intriguing idea. We shall talk more about it. Next week, we'll talk about how to measure as you push out your MVP. What numbers should you be looking at? And what are the quick metrics do we look at? Because when you push it out, you're supposed to be measuring and learning. So which metrics should you look at? Which numbers show that actually the business is working? That's how it looks like. So we'll talk more about the measuring bit next week, and I want to hear from you what you're doing. If you have specific instances that you're working on and want to get a bit of my input, I can really give in some input. So let's keep in touch. I don't know if there are more questions, but if there are none, I don't know if there are more questions.
No more questions.
Hmm?
I'm not seeing any more questions, but I was just thinking I wanted just maybe to get you into the thought balls, because this person, Melkamo, I think I heard him say something about poultry or birds. So let's say, for example, I want to start a business where I'm going to supply eggs. And for sure, when you go around, you will know that, yeah, the big shots are really making a lot of money out of it. So what would you say is a good thought process for creating an MVP in that regard?
Eggs or chicken, the poultry business, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you want to start poultry business. Again, you're not going to use the approach of borrowing a lot of money, depending on what you know about poultry, by the way. If you have grown from a home where they keep poultry, maybe you have learned some things. But if you're a newbie in poultry, the biggest mistake would be to get a huge loan and begin at huge scale and do everything like that. Would be a big mistake. But a simple thing to do poultry, for instance, is to get 10 chicken and get them and keep them through their cycle from growth to the end, and sell their eggs. While you're selling their eggs, you're testing the market. You're seeing how their health is. You're getting partners on board, people whom you think have learned about the poultry, because the goal, remember, is minimize wastage and maximize learning. You're learning from partners in the business. You're learning about chicken. You're learning about the trends of the eggs market, which months do well. So keep them for a whole cycle until they go through before you go head on to do it, and learn as much as you can. Learn as much as you can about the process. So yeah, that would be really what would call, and the MVP would be, don't wait to get money for 1,000 chicken, but rather get money for what you can. Like I said, if we were talking today and you're serious about your business, today or tomorrow, you have poultry chicken, what do you have in your pocket that you can do to get to the customer? That is the question. You get, huh? So even if you wanted to buy chicken from the village and sell it in town, tomorrow go and get the chicken from the village, sell it, learn about the profit margin, learn about the negotiation, learn about the problems there and then. You get, huh? That's the whole idea. Don't wait for so long. Whatever you're doing, quickly do it and learn about the market, and even get some money, because if you're doing a resale, you're getting chicken from the village to town, you want to know about the transport, you want to validate your assumptions about the market, etc. Maybe this is not a good time because of COVID and all, people don't have money to eat chicken, apart from a few. But when things have normalized under all conditions, those are the kind of experiments we try to do, rather than someone waking up and saying, I am beginning to import chicken. A friend of mine was starting a farm, and he said he saved his money. They gave him his NSSF retirement, and he said, now I'm going into farm business. What he did, he bought about 100 cows, different places, different locations, and put them in a farm. And they came with different diseases, and they all died. You get. So the idea would be, get a few and get them through a whole cycle and learn through the process, learn until they milk, sell some milk, whether it's a few liters, a patient process, but where you're really learning. The cost of learning is cheaper. The cost of doing these experiments is cheaper than the cost of losing the other huge monies at once. So until you have learned and keep learning, again, like I said, you keep testing different things, it's a process. You keep learning about, you test the market, you test the location, you test very many things and learn like that. So yeah, that's what I would say. But again, I'm not an expert at poultry business. I'm just giving some random ideas. Maybe people are experts, but at least I know about the IT business, which I do in. As I talk right now, I'm even running experiments, because the Climbers is on a mission to reach 1 million youths all over Africa. And I'm running experiments to see how this thing works. I sent out an email to 83 people. I sent out an email to 200 people. 83 signed up for the first call, and of them 35 came to the call. And so I'm learning, I'm documenting my learnings as well. To run this business, for instance, I'm doing it in a very small way, different people running these sessions and learning and seeing how it works, and I'm measuring some numbers. Next week I'll show you some of the numbers I've been measuring, and from this I'll get informed learning to run other courses next month. So we run these experiments all the time, rather than me getting a lot of money and putting it on Facebook ads and then beginning to advertise. I rather go through this journey, take some people through and see how it goes, learn a few things, and like that. So that's how we really do it, to minimize wastage and maximize learning.
Yeah, thank you for that. I personally have experience with farming, and I can say for a fact what you're talking about is the best way to go. I know some people are saying, how is this applicable in an East African or Uganda or whatever they may say, but I can tell you for a fact that I had two businesses for farming. one which was poultry based, like you have been talking about. I went up to 3,000 birds, 3,000 layers. Each week, we were able to make about 8 million Ugandan shillings in gross capital, and then I would be able to inject back into the business about 60%. So I had some nice margins. But if you told me to go back into poultry right now, I would definitely start with 300 birds. If I was a new person and I had no mentor, I would definitely tell you start with 300 birds, because there are so many unseen things that you really can't anticipate. Say, for example, right now off my mind, there is some like if you put chicken and you're using deep litter and the chickens crowd in one corner, they'll suffocate and die. And this is not something that you can just, think out of the blue and say, oh no, the corners, no. These are things that we learned on the go. After losing 300 birds, then you make a change, and then you keep changing, and then soon you realize that the deep litter system is not effective. You find that as I did research, because I was also learning on the process to make the whole, like to get the biggest profits out of my expenditures. So I realized that once you let the chickens run around, their laying capacity reduces. They are wasting a lot of energy in running around, chatting, WhatsApping, and a lot of them you find you're laying, your capacity to lay is about 85%. The rest of them are just chewing your food and not doing anything. So it would be better to put them in cages. And then that also helps in the utilization of space. So from what we were doing, we're leaving them to go around on the ground and then leaving all the space from the ground to the ceiling empty. So there are many, many things that I learned. And right now, if I was to start again, I would really bring like 300 birds and put them in cages and then start from there, because there are many things that are involved. So yeah, this definitely makes a lot of sense. And for me, I learned it the hard way. So
yeah, rather than the birds dying and the costs. Let's just take one more question. Thanks, Atwine, for that. Let's just take one more question. We are down on our time, and then we'll summarize for this. Yes, Collins again, Kolvak.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. My very last question would be just the way you explained to us about the MVP. On a scale of 1 to 10, say, if I don't get customers, if I've built an MVP and it's out there and I don't actually get customers, does that mean that my business will fail? Is it a guarantee that, or there is also a margin where you're like, you know what, then there is, maybe it's a wrong audience? Like, what is involved in all this?
Yes, so you have your business plan, you have written your customer segment, you're saying I'm going to target students maybe at university, and then you run to them. Again, like we said, 100 of them, you explain them about the product. And of the 100, not your relatives, not your friends, not your family, maybe 5 say your product is nice and they would pay for it. So there are 2 words. It's either you pivot or you persevere. We talked about that. I didn't emphasize it. This is called you pivot or persevere. Pivoting is when there are major changes to your product. It means that like that is a very low percentage. 5 out of 100 is a very low percentage. So the call is to pivot. And in the Lean Startup book, Eric Rice tries to explain that it's a hard feeling. He sees most people get really hurt when you thought this thing really works and doesn't work. You feel very hurt. You feel these people, maybe they are wrong the market, or it's a hard feeling. But you have to make a decision to pivot, which means either change very many things about your product and change it in ways and go back and do another experiment. If there are minor changes, in this case, maybe 70% like it, and remember, want to go to maybe 90%. Again, you make minor changes and talk to another group of people. So it's all going out and objectively accepting feedback, and you pivot. Either you change the whole product, you persevere, or you continue with the product. So those are the 2 options that you have at the end. I'm sorry the time has gone and many people are leaving. We can talk more on email. I'll share the slides. This week I'll share the slides and the video, and hope to see you next week. If you have any questions, I have to stop now because I see we are way past time and then people are dropping off. But thank you very much. Let's continue the discussion offline, and I will be there to go through some of the numbers you're measuring as you're building your MVP next week, and see you soon. Thank you very much. We have to leave for today because we are 15 minutes late. See you all. Thanks for your feedback, and let's continue the discussion online.